had on the previous round, this is when it will start curling. And this is what we want, obviously, because we're trying to make a sphere. So if we wanted a flat circle, we'd continue increasing. So we'd add 1 extra stitch in per, because we started with 6 stitches, to increase evenly, you have to add an additional 1 stitch for every 6 that you've done. Hopefully that makes sense. But because we want it to curl, because we want it to go round, we are stitching the same amount. Now, you've got 2 options here. When you get to your stitch marker, which means you've done 1 round, you can either take your stitch marker out and move it up with you, or you can just be a bit lazy like me, and leave it where it is, and just, as long as you know your first stitch, you can sort of count how many rounds you've done from there. So I'm just going to stitch into the same stitch and leave the stitch marker where it is. So I'm just going to go round again. And it's so much easier when you haven't got a count, because you can go a lot quicker. You don't really have to concentrate all that much. And it's much, but unfortunately you do have to increase and decrease to get, you know, the sizes and the shapes that you want. Otherwise, it's all part of crochet at the end of the day, isn't it? So I'm just approaching the end of the second round, and now on the third and final round of the 18 stitches. So I'm just going to finish that off. Now you can see as I'm crocheting here, it's crocheting inwards like this. I think there's a lot of people have different opinions on what is the inside, or what is the right side and what is the wrong side. For me personally, this is the wrong side. I just don't think it looks very nice. So I'll turn it this way, and I just think that looks a lot, I just think it looks a lot neater. Again, it's a difference of opinion. I think the general consensus is this way is fine. This way is the best way. But again, it's personal preference, really. I've seen it in books and magazines that what I see as the wrong way is the actual right way. But again, it's whatever you like and whatever you think looks the best. There's no right or wrong way, really. So I'm just approaching the one thing, the important thing to remember, actually, if you're going to leave your stitch marker in the very first stitch you did, as opposed to moving it up with you, it's important to remember that the last stitch that you make will be at a slightly diagonal. It won't be directly above. Now, what I should have done this the other way round, because the stitch here, I'll have to show you I'll show you on this side. No, it's not going to work. I'll have to show you at another time, because I've left the stitch marker on the wrong way and it's going to be too awkward to show you. But yeah, it won't end directly above, because when you put the stitch in, it always moves ever so slightly over, so it's never going to be directly on top. You'll always notice crochet, sort of, if you can see the stitches on it, they always go ever so slightly sort of like that. So that's the end of that row now. So the next step is single crochet decrease. Right, okay. So what I'm going to be doing now is decreasing and then a single crochet into the next stitch. So people have got different ways of doing decreases. So what I am going to do now is take out my stitch marker, because it is important to, when you're starting a new set of instructions, like another increase round or a decrease round like this one, it's important to know where you've actually started on the new instruction round. So this one wants us to decrease, and as I said, people have different ways of doing it. I personally prefer in the invisible decrease, and yet again, it would be so much simpler if I had an overhead camera. But I'll do what, it's not going to work, is it? No. So all I'm going to do is put my hook in the first, underneath the first loop, and then directly underneath the first loop of the next stitch, yarn over, and then pull through those two so that I've got two loops on my hook, and then yarn over and pull through two. What I generally tend to do, and I probably shouldn't, is I do like to pull it, just pull on the yarn tail a little bit, just to try and lessen the hole that's going to be made. Then add your stitch marker into that stitch that you've just made. So what you've essentially just done is turned two individual stitches into one. So sucking them together, because whilst we've increased here to make it larger, now because we're making it into a ball, we want it to go down. And I just dropped my hook, there it is. So we've just decreased that one, and now we're going to just put a single crochet in the next. And sometimes it is really difficult to see where your next stitch is, because you might be fooled thinking that your next stitch is actually one that you've just decreased. So it does take a little bit of which is the right one, first of all. And if you ever really can't tell, just count backwards from what's left, and it should be 17, I think, your 17th stitch. So we're going to put a single in the next one, just a nice single one there, and then we're going to decrease the next one in exactly the same manner we did the first one. What some people do, and what I have done in the past, is used a hook size down, or half a hook size down. So technically I could use a 3.5 millimeter now, just to do the decreases, just to make the decreasing holes a little bit smaller, because they are, even though we're doing the invisible decrease, you can still, sometimes the stuffings can still show through, and I do at times like to be a bit of a perfectionist, and it does bother me ever so slightly if I can see stuffing poking through. So that's, I think, I don't know whether I've paid enough attention here, so I should have done it. Now, because I've decreased one, I put a stitch in the next, I should have 12 now. So I'm just going to check, make sure I do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Excellent. So that's good. So stuff to go 12. Stuff your bristle now. There we are. Okay, so I've got a bit of stuff in here. Oh, crumbs. Hang on. Now, ouch. The stuffing I usually use is just from Hobbycraft. I have bought some from eBay before, but I needed some straight away, so I had to get it from, actually I got this from the range, and I think this was 2 for £6, which is pretty decent. I think, well, it definitely is it's a lot cheaper on Amazon. Obviously, the more you buy, I think the cheaper it is as well. But this is pretty good stuff. I've used it for 99% of the stuff, of the crochet items that I've made. This stuff, however, there was a cushion on the back of this settee chair thing that I had, but it was too puffy, so I moved it, put it behind there, and I pulled the stuffing out of it. So I'm using that at the moment. So I'm just going to take a little bit and shove some in here. I do find that if you put too much in to begin with, it can be quite difficult to stitch the rest of it closed, because you'll get your stuff in mixed up in your stitches, and then it looks fluffy. So I'll put a little bit in for now, and then on the next decreasing round we'll just shove some more in. So I'll just shove some in. There we go. I'll push it down as much as I can. So it's just like this for now. And the next round wants us to decrease on every stitch. So decrease it 6 times. So that's what I shall do. So decrease. So that's 1. And again, like I said, it can be difficult sometimes to see which are the correct stitches to be decreasing.